Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Newsflash. We have a good one for you, as always. Here's what we're talking about. We're talking about that budget bill. It's continuing to get and stay interesting, folks, as the Democrats are searching pretty frantically for people to find their, just to get their bills passed. Like something about this Virginia, really shellacking kind of put their priorities maybe a little bit in perspective. We'll take new reporting and contextualize it with some of the results, and also give you some of the breakdown on some of the big results, some of the big takeaways that I had, at least from Tuesday night. Meanwhile, the House has given billionaires a pass with a new nicotine tax, and you may have heard that Let's Go Brandon chant. And if you're not on the online, right, you probably don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Let's Go Brandon, what does that mean? Maybe I've heard my uncle talking about it, or, mentioning it weirdly to me. If I've seen him before Thanksgiving, what is it? We will explain, and we'll tell you why it is another dumb right-wing joke on the show today. All right. And of course, we have to start with some of the 2021 elections. Very, very exciting, probably, the least exciting elections that there are, the off year in between the midterms and the presidency. That is, always the dreariest year. But there are some very important, very interesting signs, and pretty much all of the signs were very, very good for the Republicans and very, very bad for the Democrats. And, you got to look at it, I think probably state by state, because it is a bit, I do think they were losing in Virginia for different reasons on Tuesday night than they were losing in New Jersey, because it really was incredible to see, because Virginia, I came on, and first let me just say, before we get into any of that, just off the top of the show, that Indian Walton loss, that is going to be something that we will cover on future shows, just to get a sense of what happened there, because that is definitely another very tough loss. Would be good to see her. She was such an inspiring voice, and just should have been Buffalo's mayor. But that one, I'm not gonna lie. Try to be honest here on the show, but that is going to take a bit to get over. That was definitely a tough loss for the left, with Indian Walton in Buffalo, Byron Brown winning there on a mayoral campaign, or a writing campaign. When does that ever happen? Nothing good coming out of that one at all. But yeah, so getting into this other stuff here with New Jersey, with Virginia, everyone is going to try to put their own narrative on it to make their side of the party look better. We're already seeing that with some, people leaking, people being like, we got to pass the damn bill now. But again, this is the problem. This is the trap that people lay into all the time. Like the bill, that if they pass the bill as currently situated, which it looks like they're going to have to, move it around a little bit, that's not going to do anything, because this bill does not pass the threshold of actually being transformative to everyday Americans. Like it's going to pretty much do the same thing Obamacare. Like there's going to be a big, long, drawn out fight. The bill will be watered down a lot. It will pass very late, and due to the nature of the bill, due to how watered down it has been, it won't do anything good, and the Democrats will be screwed for the midterms. And, they really only, I think, have themselves to blame. I mean, as long as they cannot be a serious party. They cannot be, I think if it was really just Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, the only two holdouts, they would have, found a way to get past it, I think, at this point. But there are more people waiting in the wings. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I do not want to hear, it's just Joe Manchin. We just got to keep primarying, Joe Manchin pretty much straight up teasing at this point, coming out today and saying, I think, if you don't want to deal with me, well, then primary me and get me out of here, knowing the left has tried like 2 times very unsuccessfully. But it does show you, I think, that this is not really, the key to solving it. There has to be, primary, win these, getting these fights like India Walton, Cori Bush, those 2 fights had different results, but I think both of them were just as important to get into because of the, really good results. Left-wingers, socialists, whatever you want to call it, should not stop contending and contesting elections all throughout the country. Like, just where I am right now, there was a doubling of socialists on the city council. Like, that is a, just a small instance on a night the Democrats did horribly nationwide, of the fact that, left-wing politics can advance forward whenever, wherever, however, but it also can, of course, decline backward, which is a very, very, important thing to do. But what I think here is happening, because there's two sides to this. What do we have here in Virginia on the Democratic side? We have pretty much white man version of Hillary Clinton, someone who was just completely uninspiring, been around the block a few times, not really running on, and very, very corporately tied to all the big money interests you could possibly think of. Big, leader in the Democratic Party. I think it was like someone at CNN, like Vance Jones, called him like Democratic royalty. He's only Democratic fundraiser loyalty, and I think royalty. And there is a key difference there when it comes to what actually matters when it comes to winning elections. I think in this day and age, you got to be able to connect with the people too. At some point, it can't just be the fundraisers. It's got to also be the people. And Terry McAuliffe just structurally unable to run a campaign on anything other than Trump. Like, he could just not do it. Everything he adds, I'm running for you, Glenn Youngkin's running for Trump. Well, what are you going to run for me on? Like, that is the thing that he fundamentally failed to address, and he was killed for that. And, Biden at the national level, Biden, the inefficiency of the Democratic Party, the weakness and the fecklessness of the Democratic Party when it comes to actually getting their, very popular policy priorities done here, to give, their base something to be excited about, then, it's very, very hard to make a case that they could win and do well. And you know what? They didn't. So it's really not that altogether surprising. No policy, no positive agenda on one side when you have, another guy who's, complete moderate, complete picture of the Republican that those people in Virginia, the people that flipped, used to vote for all the time, a nice, down-the-middle, moderate Republican who, speaks their language on, schools and, quote-unquote, cultural issues. I would agree with people who saying that, that's a lot of, bad baggage there, some of the CRT stuff. But a lot of it comes from the fact that in both states, New Jersey and New Jersey and Virginia, that the Democratic base was not energized. I think with Phil Murphy, the reason why he won was because he did put boots to the road. He put rubber to the road in New Jersey. He has done a lot in 2 years. But one thing that cannot be overstated, I think it's been, has he been in office for you? I don't know. But, one thing that cannot be overstated is both of them had no help from the National Democrats. And that's what we're going to talk about now here in the New York Times. House Democrats struggled on Thursday to line up the votes needed to push through a $1.85 trillion social safety net, climate, and tax bill as moderate Democrats spooked by Thursday's election drubbing, raised concerns about the cost and details of the rapidly evolving plan. Terry McAuliffe is not a tax and spend, big government guy. He is very straight. He's very center, down the middle type of guy. And he had an idea that the moderates who would just no one calls on them because they are in the media pretty much. No one in the media is going to call on them to start re-examining their principles. Like if for example Jennifer Carroll Foy had done that performance in the Virginia governor's race, which I personally do not think she would have, even if Youngkin still would have won, there would be massive crap heading the left's way right now. Jennifer Carroll Foy, by the way, was the left-wing candidate in the Virginia governor primary. But when Terry McAuliffe loses as someone who was literally the most conservative option, then what do we get? Oh, it's the left's fault. They were just too demanding by passing literally a fraction of what Joe Biden said he would run on. Not even their full agenda, not even Joe Biden's full agenda, a fraction of Joe Biden's own agenda. And they're not even pushing for better on that that $1.75 reconciliation bill. They're just letting it, go down by the wayside. They're letting the $1.75 trillion bill stick, which now probably isn't even going to matter because Joe Manchin isn't even going to support that one now, which is also, I think, kind of incredible. Because it's just all this Pramila Jayapal pressing, she kind of caved on this worried that she'd be blamed for the loss. She was blamed for the loss anyway. And then, to put the cherry on top, Joe Manchin comes out and says, all those compromises you made, not enough. Sorry. Like, it's just too perfect. So they are pretty much Speaker Nancy Pelosi apparently leading the charge now. She had privately told her top deputies on Friday morning that there would hopefully be a vote to clear the Senate passed $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure measure for President Biden's signature, according to people briefed on the discussion. But the votes proved elusive as the night fell. Even after Biden and members of his cabinet worked the phones, and Pelosi spent much of her day buttonholing lawmakers on the House floor. With Republicans united in opposition, Democrats could afford to lose as few as 3 votes from their side on this $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Among the biggest issues were the cost and economic effects of the bill. So this is not the Build Back Better agenda. This is, or what's left of it. This is the other one. This is the bipartisan one, which is pretty much a complete giveaway to corporations, and a big reason why, it was separated for really dumb reasons by Pelosi and Biden, but it's also a big reason why so many Democrats were so invested in this other bill, because the bipartisan bill was so trash. Republicans were united in opposition. Democrats could afford to lose as few as 3 votes from their side. Among the biggest issues, again, were the cost and the plan. A few senators were balking at supporting the package, which includes monthly payments to families with children, universal pre-K, a 4-week paid family and medical leave program, healthcare subsidies, and a broad array of climate initiatives. Okay, so this is weird because they are now completely, they're kind of saying it wrong. So it looks like their bipartisan infrastructure measure, $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure. She wanted to get. All right, so she's clearly talking about. No, the Times here is clearly talking about the reconciliation bill. Now, there certainly is a lack of trust among some of the moderates, says Henry Cuellar. There's been really just from Manchin yesterday being like, okay, now the political games have had to end from the left wing side. By the way, this is someone who's been just lowering his number and. Talk about playing political games. Joe Manchin has been playing political games with this from the start because he does not want this bill to pass. Like, he just wants, whatever the corporations want, whatever is best for his bottom line. Henry Cuellar here, no different. He came out recently and said that he would support this bill, but now, all of a sudden, there's a big lack of trust. Wonder where that came from. So he says, I want to move the ball forward, but I still want to know what are the differences. Pelosi remained publicly non-committal about a path forward, even as she mounted an intense campaign to rally her members behind the bill. She darted from lawmaker to lawmaker on the House floor, taking pulses and counting votes, saying, we're going to pass both bills, but in order to do so, we have to have the votes for both bills. She found herself up against moderates and swing district Democrats in no rush to cast a vote. This is not someone who's in swing district Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey. We're reading through 20,000 pages that we got last night, said Josh Gottheimer. Like you didn't know. Like you weren't on the phone with your lobbyist practically writing this damn bill in the first place. Josh Gottheimer, again, by the way, for no reason, is now the one holding up something the Democrats have promised since 2006 in prescription drugs. Allowing us to negotiate for a prescription drug. So Biden made personal calls on Thursday as did Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, who reached out to at least one Democrat facing a tough re-elect. I don't know how helpful that was, but we need to get these both done for the American people, as we've been saying, as soon as possible, says Karine Jean-Pierre, the deputy White House press secretary. We cannot wait here. The American people cannot wait. And yeah, your electoral fortunes cannot wait. But the question is, if they are able to pass this now, will it, and that still is a very open question with, what the House moderates have done. It doesn't seem to even be the House progressives, holding up. The best I can tell, they're completely out of the picture here, which is a whole nother issue in and of itself. But if they're even able to pass this thing, is it going to matter for them? Is it going to make a dent in the economy? Is it going to make people's lives better? I think it will, maybe for a time being, but this is just not the transformative bill. It's like the bill, I had gripes with the bill when it was at $3.5 trillion. Now it's been pretty much cut in half. So I have a hard time, really getting up and raving. And, I don't think anybody should be getting up and raving about this bill. You can be honest. You don't have to play for the blue team. And I feel like if the blue team actually listen to people, saying, hey, maybe actually do something people can feel, make change people can feel, like Nina Turner, I saw her tweeting about that, then they may find themselves in a bit better of an electoral situation, believe it or not. All right, let's move to our next story. We're talking about House Democrats. This is a very interesting situation. Sarah Sirota and Ryan Grimm on this one. A new version of the Build Back Better Act. They're writing here again in The Intercept. A new version of the Build Back Better Act that the House Rules Committee released on Wednesday was amended to protect tax avoidance schemes used by the ultra-wealthy in their estate planning. The updated legislation, though, made up the revenue loss by going light on those billionaires by expanding tobacco taxes to additional nicotine products. So they were amended to protect tax avoidance schemes used by the ultra-wealthy in the estate planning. Now they are going to be taxing nicotine products more. Not that I'm a big fan of nicotine products, but this is, again, just such a perfect way. And it kind of goes back to something that I heard multiple times, throughout, my following in politics. It's almost like the Democrats are like, the regulators of the EU. They're like, European social democracy without any of the good stuff. They're not like, they don't give you that part of the deal that's like, you get free healthcare, free college, access to an affordable home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You just get the insane, regulations and taxes for everything that makes, your kind of depressing life a little bit better, even though it may be unhealthy. That kind of mindset, I think, is really at play here with this. We're not going to let the billionaires pass money down just over and over and over again. We're not going to stop that from happening to, fund social programs, but yeah, no jewels for you. That's the message here of the Democratic Party. How could they possibly lose in the midterms, right? How could they possibly lose a Virginia election? It's so hard to figure out. I could not possibly understand, So the provision sent rich people scrambling here. This previous version of the bill that had targeted a number of complex schemes the super rich used to involve moving money in and out of trusts in order to pass down wealth to the next generation without getting hit by an estate or gift tax. The provision sent rich people into a scramble. A note from the law firm Goodwin warned clients that restrictions may wind up as law, emphasizing that provisions would take effect on or before January 1st, 2022, so their clients should act quickly. The note advised in bold text, if you're making gifts in excess of $6.02 million, less the portion of your exemption amounts you have already used, you should consult your tax advisor and consider making these gifts as soon as possible. So pretty much the idea is sell, make those gifts, pass that money down before you get taxed on it by January 1st, 2022. Well, apparently complaints have been made with the power from the powers that be to, the people who are supposed to, be regulating them and holding them accountable. What really we are seeing is, that is the return. This is like, oh, okay, now we're back doing what we're supposed to be doing, The suggestion that the ultra-wealthy quicken the pace of their generosity to their beneficiaries was revised on Wednesday as the rich breathe easier, a sense of cautious optimism dawning. The Goodwin firm wrote an update. Please keep in mind, ongoing negotiations could further modify the current legislation. Goodwin wrote in an update once the provision was stripped, adding some or all the prior proposals could be added back or added back in, or a new proposal could be raised. If you've been engaging in planning to address the previous proposals, please consult with your tax advisors or estate planning lawyer to discuss the newest proposals may affect your plans. The previous plan was also met with some pushback from at least one trade group, Structured Finance Association, according to another note from the law firm Cadwalder, Wickersham, and Taft. The firm warned that new restrictions on grantor trusts, one of the schemes that the super rich used to avoid tax on wealth transfers, could be detrimental to the securitization industry that leverages the current tax treatment of these trusts. So these are like actual really powerful industries. They're all completely built on just pushing money around and not really kind of creating any value, just pushing money from one rich person to another rich person's, fifth or sixth bank account. But, these people in those industries and those activities hold incredible power and incredible influence in Congress. Per a letter last month from the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel, a lawyers association, to say the least, closing this loophole was set to generate about $8 billion in revenue for the federal government over 10 years. The amount is modest relative to the size of the Build Back Better Act, but it was targeted at a small handful of the country's wealthiest families. So this is just a handful of families generating from $8 billion in revenue, which is, it's a pretty significant amount. It's, obviously pales in comparison to the Build Back Better Act, but the Build Back Better Act, in terms of past government spending, we can, very much quibble around the size. I think we definitely should, but in terms of past government spending, the Build Back Better Act is quite big. So to make up for the loss, the bill will place a new excise tax on any nicotine other than nicotine currently listed tobacco products or certain products approved by the FDA that have been extracted, concentrated, or synthesized. The new tax will add either the dollar amount for small cigarettes or $50.33 per 1,810 milligrams of nicotine, whichever is greater. In October 2019, the Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that a similar plan to tax nicotine and vaping would raise just under $10 billion over 10 years, so around the same amount. But it's just going to be more, it's going to be more an effect on normal people. Like, normal people are going to feel it. If they're going to feel it, they're probably going to feel it negatively. So, not the best political move here from, the Democratic Party. Not to say that, I love people smoking cigarettes and vaping, all this stuff. That is the best. But in terms of the policy moves here, in terms of the policy moves and the politics of the situation, in terms of what is the smarter move politically, what would make our world a better place, I would say that original tax would be more appropriate, more better better in every way. So that is, not the best, to say the least. So this is going to jack up the prices of popular products like e-cigarettes, many of which are considered to be less harmful than traditional cigarettes and actually, do play a role in helping people quit smoking. It also will mean that thousands of people making less than $400,000 will end up paying increased taxes, contradicting President Joe Biden's promise that the middle class and low income people will not face tax hikes under his administration. So people use cigarettes. That tax is actually going to be going up pretty much all because of Biden here. So that's one tax you can rightfully blame 100% on Joe Biden. So despite the oft-touted public health benefits of raising taxes on nicotine and tobacco, smokers trying to quit using cigarettes will often rely on products that will be impacted by the new measure, and they will now be left with an added expense. Further, a price increase for nicotine consumers is likely disproportionately to place revenue on revenue burdens on poorer populations, sparing the top 1% who can't afford to hire elite wealth management professionals and accountants to help avoid them paying taxes through grantor trusts, loopholes, and funds and all that year after year. All right. We'll get to our next story now. All right. Let's go. We're talking today about this Let's Go Brandon situation, and this is apparently, so pretty much this is like the new conservative inside joke, pretty much. Like, this is like what they're telling each other, behind their backs on the Facebook pages. You may see someone, you may see like your uncle bring this up in a few weeks at Thanksgiving. This will be the thing that'll be like, we're showing Joe Biden. Anyway. This weekend, Southwest Airlines announced the start of an internal investigation into one of its pilots who had allegedly concluded his in-flight remarks with the phrase, quote, "Let's go, Brandon," a right-wing shibboleth from MAGA scenesters who would rather play silly rhetorical games than come out and just say, the words, I'm going to say it, explicit content, fuck Joe Biden, like a grown-up. Like, if you're just going to say it, you just got to say it, People were not hesitant about saying Trump, saying fuck Trump. Like, that was a very, very common thing you saw, on over, like, graffiti, signs, stickers. That stuff was simply everywhere. And you can call liberals, you can call them out and be like, oh, like, liberals, you're so weak, you're so lame, whatever. But the truth of the matter is they are doing, they actually said it. They didn't come up with some weird little joke to say the same thing, like some little like code that you say like when you're kind of trying to talk to your little girlfriend across the room and not let the guys hear, that kind of thing. It's kind of lame. The providence of substituting encouragement for Brandon in place of swearing at the president is as dumb as it is unimportant. At this point, LGB is ubiquitous among knuckle-dragging conservative class as red hats and Confederate flag tattoos. It doesn't matter where it came from. It's here now. It can be found anywhere from the House of Representatives to the World Series. And frankly, it stinks. To be clear, it doesn't stink because it's disrespectful, uncivil, or however else the very important pundits have chosen to collectively clutch their pearls at this stupid, display. Here is writing, by the way, from Discourse blog. It is, swearing at the president, by the way, nothing wrong with that. It's okay when Rashida Tlaib does it. It's okay when I do it. It's okay when even Ted Cruz does it. You're totally allowed to do it. It's part of being an American, and you should always be able to do it. But I really think should be some change in our free speech laws to say if you don't do it well and if you do it in an unfunny way, like you should be punished for that. Like the secret police will be like, okay, you roasted Biden, but you roasted him badly, so you got to go in the gulag now. No, but it would definitely be like, because this is just not good. This is just not good. Humbling politicians who think too highly of themselves is very, very time-honored tradition acceptable in America. But the problem with Let's Go Brandon is that it's weak. It's just, sophomoric. It's freshmanic, really. It just uses bluster, uses bravado to mask a fundamentally hollow conviction over what's actually being said. If conservatives want to say, fuck Joe Biden because they truly believe it, he should be fucked. I don't know about that, but then they should just come out and say, fuck Joe Biden like grown-ups. If they wanted, they could even put a beat to it like YG and Nipsey Hussle did. They literally made an entire song called FDT. That is how you're supposed to do it when you hate a president. Like, come on. Oh, wait. The right doesn't have any cultural talent. Forgot about that. But what Let's Go Brandon is a transparent grasp at is some fleeting sense of smug superiority by a group who needs to feel like they're in on some important secret joke. I don't think there's been many liberals who have been just killing themselves. Like, I need to figure out what they're saying when they say, let's go, Brandon. Does it say something about Joe Biden? Oh, my gosh. Because, by and large, most people in this country are not that enthused. They're not in love with Joe Biden. That's a big reason why he won. It's not because people love him. It's because people just wanted a chill old grandpa. So, if you're going to really, going to turn the case against Biden, you may have some support, but at least do a little better than that, In this sense, really, it is the same sort of bait as the legion of aspiring white nationalists who gleefully tossed up the okay hand sign, knowing full well it was less about signifying their apparent political beliefs than it was about riling up the normies. So too is Let's Go Brandon. It's another key perfect attempt about making those damn liberals mad. It's less an insult as it is a mass troll job designed for omnidirectional offense in the service of juvenile solidarity, which incidentally Donald Trump Jr. is happy to capitalize for the low price of $27.99. If you want a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt from Donald Trump Jr.'s website, yeah, it'll be for a t-shirt, $30 Let's Go Brandon t-shirt that looks like the NASCAR logo. Jeez, that's rough. That is rough. No, but people will be willing to pay it. That's the best part about it. The nice thing about Let's Go Brandon is that the moment you realize it's not intended to offend the president as it is to offend you, it's paradoxically easier to truly not care about it whatsoever. Also, it's just done by people I don't have any respect for. If you're really if you're really offended by someone saying "Let's Go Brandon" and it means even if it means fuck Joe Biden, you got to get your head checked out. That is just ridiculous. Come on, wake up. People. I bet you said that. I bet you thought that about President Donald Trump. So it's no big deal. People can say fuck Joe Biden as much as they want, and they would be perfectly right to, and in many, many cases. So that is that's definitely something you can't ignore. But as I said before, even with there were some pretty bad examples, some pretty weak examples of the Democrats resisting to Trump. We've talked a lot about that over the show over the past 4 or 5 years, but I think more clear than not, what we see really what we clearly see is just a big fat, disappointment. This is just boring. It's just not funny. This is, I think the same thing that should happen to the people who are doing Let's Go Brandon is, the people who are making all those, Robert Mueller t-shirts back when Robert Mueller was such a big thing for people. They, just be like, time to find another gig. And when Trump stepped down, a lot of those people, or not stepped down, but, left or was beaten, then they had to find another gig, whether they liked it or not, because they wouldn't buy their, Trump kitschy merch anymore. I suspect the Biden cottage industry is going to be a fair bit sadder. All right, we'll be back on Sunday. This is Newsflash.